Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the internet. Welcome to the channel. My name is Prozek, and how do we talk about canon? It seems obvious, doesn't it? Often, media will have an obvious through line that is usually declared as in the same continuity. Then there might be other works, tie-ins or spin-offs, which don't fall in the same continuity, but share the setting or characters. For fans and internet theorists alike, it's easy to look at this and think it's a simple dichotomy, but recently I've been thinking more deeply about it. Let's touch on Star Trek. The community there has a pretty rigorous filter for what is and isn't considered canon, and it's quite simple. The films and TV shows are considered canon, with the more recent entries taking precedence over older things. This is how we can deal with the weird things from the early original series. There's a little bit of peculiarity with the Kelvin timeline films, Star Trek 2009 and its successors, but even if it is explicitly a different universe, the writers have made great efforts to tie it all back to the main continuity. I really respect the dedication of the series producers to maintaining their canon, and it makes it easy to pick out things that don't fit with it. I loved the Voyager books growing up, but even I could recognise that they were exploring a what-if scenario that wouldn't fit in the main show. Star Trek was in a bit of a dry patch at the time outside of the Kelvin films, so I can imagine the writers wanting to explore ideas that they never got to during the shows themselves, even if they wouldn't have fit with the canon. Maybe Voyager was a bad example, those salamanders are best forgotten. Special mention to Star Trek Online. As a video game, it falls outside of the canon and it runs with it. STO depicts a galaxy at war, and a lot of the story elements lean on that in ways that simply wouldn't work for the main continuity. That doesn't mean these ideas can't crop up again, of course. I remember cheering when I learned the Odyssey class was being introduced into canon. Still, it had to be promoted into that position, and many other wonderful ideas are still languishing in beta canon. This idea of alpha and beta canon is really interesting to me, and I think deserves expanding further. Having the inarguable main continuity and its surrounding extra-canonical appendices really helps people discuss things on the same page. If you'll indulge me, I'd like to expand this to 4 discrete categories in this video, and I'll do it with a series that is notoriously difficult to discuss on even footing, Five Nights at Freddy's. Oh, yeah. That's interesting. Oh. No. I'm not going back. No. Alpha canon. This is the absolute core and inarguably included content of the series. The specific media and ideas which are found in Alpha canon are those which the creators take great care to ensure fit within the overarching continuity. As you might imagine, this is somewhat tricky to nail down precisely, so I'll be a little reserved in my choices. Firstly, I'm including the 6 games originally developed by Scott Cawthon in the same sit and survive style. These are Freddy's 1, 2, 3, 4, Sister Location, and Pizzeria Simulator. Wait, Pizzeria Simulator? Yes, despite its obvious stylistic differences, I would say it's not only so heavily tied into the lore of following Alpha canon entries, but an excellent capstone for the original storyline. I'm notably excluding Ultimate Custom Night here. While it too is an excellent send-off for its era, and there are certainly enough convincing arguments for me personally to include it, it requires interpretation and assumption to place within the same continuity as the Alpha canon, which by definition excludes it. That said, if you want to treat UCN as Alpha canon, I will not stop you. After Steel Wool takes over, things get a little more contentious, but I think it makes sense to include Security Breach, obviously, the 2 Help Wanted games, and the most recent as of writing, Secret of the Mimic. The first and last are self-explanatory. This is the modern direction and canon of the franchise, and it's clear a lot of work has gone into making sure things align with the original games in ways that make it clear this is intended to be the continuation of the series. Help Wanted I had to think about for a while. What convinced me is, strangely enough, the very non-canonical Curse of Dreadbear DLC for the original Help Wanted. Hand Unit, everyone's favourite recurring character, states outright that the DLC is non-canonical, and while it certainly does pay homage to the lore, it takes delight in being completely detached from continuity in ways that the main game refuses to. In a sense, this is a statement by omission that the main Help Wanted game should be considered canon. There are a few other candidates I want to bring up briefly. Most significantly is Into the Pit. Into the Pit is a video game adaptation of a story from the Fazbear Fright series about a kid named Oswald and a ball pit that seems to travel through time. Being a video game, it's easy to argue that this canonizes the story it depicts in a way the book didn't, but personally I'm unwilling to give it the gold pass and let it into this quadrant, as it's still deeply rooted in ideas that are otherwise only found in beta canon sources. It's worth saying that being a video game doesn't automatically grant alpha canon status, otherwise we'd all have to deal with Freddy in space too. And finally there's FNAF World. Personally, I like the take that this is the crying child's mind being prepared to be repaired in the lead up to the Freddy's 3 minigames and Happiest Day, but much like UCN, that is built on a foundation of speculation and induction. Even at its most canon adjacent, World still requires a short leap to make it over the finish line, which I'm just not comfortable taking for this definition. Beta canon. This is the domain of most other official media. Of course, any previously mentioned games that I said didn't fall into the first category are here, as well as the various book series, interactive novels, graphic novels, files, frights and tales. It's all going in the beta canon bin. The point of defining the category is so that you can understand the source of claims better. You can absolutely make arguments from beta canon sources. I absolutely love the Dr. Rabbit theories. But it has to be with the understanding that you are importing information into alpha canon from elsewhere that would not otherwise exist within it. In theories relating entirely to alpha canon media, I would suggest bringing in beta information to support your arguments, not to hold it together unaided. Look, the week before, I love you, man, but I'm not going to start calling the phone guy Ralph until I see it in Ultimate Custom Light at least. There's also an interesting case here for the ideas of remnant and agony. If you're not too deep into the Five Nights at Freddy's theory rabbit hole, just smile and nod for me for a second, alright? But for the rest of us, allow me to read off the entire catalogue of remnant mentions from alpha canon sources. Schematics from Pizzeria Simulator for the scooper seen in sister location, named here as part of the scalable creation of ulterior presence, credited to Afton Robotics LLC. Contains A. The excavating arm. B. Remnant injector. A note reads, leave trace line amount on interior. Overusage / overexposure negates effect. C. Arm base and balance. And D. Remnant reservoir. Another note reads, when heated, no observable motion. Keep in heated tank at sustained temperature. Substance should be malleable, but not more. There is a possibility that overheating might neutralize the effects permanently. That's it. That's literally everything. Agony is not mentioned once, and there's no suggestion of haunted metal, ghost energy amalgams, or weird floating glowy orb things. None of it. The wording does make it clear there's something ghost-like associated with it. The term ulterior presence can be literally read as existing outside of an obvious entity, i.e. a supernatural presence. But the rest of the terminology could easily be read as talking about the physical remains removed by the scooper, the remnants of a corpse, which, as it happens, is exactly what the scooper collects in sister location. It's only in the context of the books, especially the first few published, that the term is now applied to a single physical material, and to me at least it's always felt like a stretch to include into as many places as it had been. Heck, the schematic this is all sourced from even says scalable creation, implying that hauntings can be created without collecting any remains at all. And it's telling that the next even pseudo-canonical source for Remnant we have, the augmented reality game, depicts it as a weird glowy orb thing that's not even close to what the books have been hooked on for a whole decade now. Oh, but the Dead by Daylight item is a tie-in inside another franchise. Is it suddenly canon that Steve from Minecraft is able to drift minecarts just because he's in Sonic Racing Crossworlds? It's a cute reference, but it's so far down the beta canon, I'm tempted to make a whole 5th category just for it. Sorry, got a bit off track there. I don't like ghost metal theory, alright? Let's just move on before we get lost again. Gamma canon. This is the weird one, and I'll reference Star Trek again for this. While it's never been recognized as separate from its franchise's beta canon, Star Trek Online is such an enormous and expansive project unto itself. There's media that ties into it far more than it does the main Star Trek canon. This is the idea I'd use here, and it doesn't really apply to most franchises. It's a special case for a subset of works that are obviously divorced from the alpha canon, but large enough to have its own beta canon entries. In the case of Five Nights at Freddy's, I'd give this one to the movies. At time of writing, we're still waiting for the second film to release, but I wouldn't be surprised if by the upload date there are activity books and Funko Pops and graphic novels that choose not to tie themselves to the alpha canon as much as they do to these films. For the sake of theory crafting, using gamma canon is essentially declaring that your theory exists within the framework of that set of works, but does not necessarily apply to the alpha canon. You can use beta sources in support of your arguments. Heck, you can even use alpha sources if you want, but don't make the mistake of saying that this is true in gamma because it's true in alpha. And finally, delta canon. This is where the fans exist, and that's not to downplay it as anything lesser to the other 3 quadrants. There are a plethora of excellent sources that you can start building your own theories from, expanding on the works of Dorco, Right-Host, Candy Bunny, or the almighty Matthew. Exploring and expounding on the implications of other theories is how we got into this wonderfully tangled mess of assumptions, reassessments, and timelines that is so engaging to unpick as a theorist. And of course, that's to say nothing of the fan works that stand entirely on their own. Five Nights at Candy's, The Joy of Creation, Flumpties, plus, hell, if I dig around here long enough, I'll find my own sordid past with the franchise's fanverse. If you want to import ideas from Delta Canon, go right ahead. I'm certain that whatever comes of it will be good fun for everyone involved. Just don't go declaring that your placement of chompers on game theory's timeline is the only inarguable truth in the franchise. I'm sorry to say, but the only inarguable truth around here is that Mr. Hippo would absolutely top tier in Smash, no contest, don't at me. With that, I've covered all 4 categories into which you can categorize media as a franchise, and how I at least choose to discuss it. By using categories like this, we can ensure that everyone's discussing on the same page and avoid people walking away thinking they know for sure that something is true, when really it's only an inference from secondary sources. If others wish to use this framework as well, I'd be well pleased. But even if not, I hope you found it to be an interesting perspective. Thank you so much for watching. While I do a variety of things here, and even I don't know what the next upload will be, I do hope you stick around for more. Shout out to Jan Measley and Scruffy, both of whom heavily inspired this style of video. Do go check out the secondary channel, there's a new upload every other day, and the VODs channel of course. And if you'd like to support me, then check out the Twitch channel, as I'm live every Wednesday and Thursday at 5 PM UTC. With that being said, I'll see you next time.